Well, if I had my TIG welder, I'd at least attempt. All right, so if you're keeping track, this is master cylinder number 3 that we've tried so far.
Nice!
Around. Oh, yeah! There's a regular Jeep. There's my mini Jeep. So it's been probably 4 months since I've had this thing on the channel. And last winter, I built this thing completely from scratch. I started with a really junky go-kart chassis. And the only thing that remains from that original chassis is the steering wheel. Yeah, that's it. Everything else is either from different machines or custom built. So if you haven't seen this thing before, I originally started with a go-kart chassis, like I said, and then that transformed into using a lawnmower engine so I can harness the power of a 5-speed transmission. And that turned into, I wanted it 4-wheel drive and full suspension. So we got the axles, front and rear, and suspension out of an old Polaris 4-wheeler. And we even set this thing up with a chain drive 4-wheel drive. Pretty cool little machine, but it's got some flaws, that's for sure. So we did get it finished and took it on one good day of test riding. Found a few issues it had, but overall it made it through a full day of testing, and I was blown away with how much fun it was. And since then, it has just sat. Actually, I have done some off-camera work. So we did some bracing on the transmission here, as you can see, and changed around our idler for the chain, and did a bunch of work to the belt drive system because it slipped a lot. Nothing super exciting to see, so I didn't film any of it, but maybe we'll show it some in this video. So we got it working really good. The belt system was working good. The chain system was close, but not quite perfect yet. It still wants to skip every once in a while. And then I was in the backyard playing with the new clutch system, popping wheelies and stuff. And yeah, the transmission split in half. You can see it even better over here. So, yeah. I ended up sourcing another one on Facebook Marketplace for $100. Got it shipped here. I'm not super confident in the longevity of that one. We're going to do some more bracing up on that one to try and get it to last a little bit longer than a few hours that this transmission has in it. And we're just not going to do any wheelies. Yeah, so that's the main part of today's video is going to be swapping the new transmission in, which is exactly the same, and bracing it up, trying to make it survive. These things can survive being in race lawnmowers, so I think it should survive. We don't have too much horsepower going to it. I think that's only a 12.5 horsepower vertical shaft engine, if I remember. We're also going to do some brake changes and try and figure out this chain idler issue once and for all. Maybe go for a ride in this video, but that'll probably be a separate video. I don't know. We'll see. But let's dig in. All right, well, we got its pants off. Thankfully, I made the tub relatively easy to get off. Definitely hurts your back a little bit, but 4 bolts. You got to undo the dash. A couple other little random things. About 20 minutes to get it off. Makes it a lot nicer to work on. So here you can get an even better look at my carnage. It did actually drive like this. The problem that stopped me was that it threw the chain because it's all cattywampus now. So we'll get that little guy pulled out of there and get the new one set in. I hope this is the exact same. I'm pretty sure it is. I kind of ordered it on a whim. I wish I would have stopped and thought about whether or not I wanted to continue using this drivetrain or change it up. But hey, I would like to give this drivetrain style one more chance now that I got the belt dialed in. Let me scoop that old trans out of here and its multiple pieces, and we'll see what's going on. Well, if I had my TIG welder, I'd at least attempt. But being it's cast, and a pretty dirty casting with all that grease in there, that would be a nightmare to try and weld. But really, I mean, the transmission itself, I don't think got damaged. It's just this housing, so at least we have a bunch of spare parts and stuff. So, things I'm going to try, I think, I wasn't using all 6 mounting holes. We'll definitely do that in the future. The other thing is we have 2 holes on the side, on both sides here. I think we're going to try and tie into those somehow. And I've even gone as far, or thought as far as just like, I don't know, grabbing these top mounts or something. The thing that makes it tricky is I want it to be able to slide back and forth. So makes it a little tougher to get a solution. It also makes it a little tougher to hold it tight when it wants to slide like that. I have actually thought about, I have adjustment on the rear axle and I have adjustment for my belt up here, so I'm thinking about just solid mounting a transmission. That way it doesn't have the stress of sliding back and forth, and we can mount it a little more solid. All right, one thing I did not mention before is that this transmission mount actually bent after that first ride. That was the first issue with this transmission, so I beefed it up with this. Not that happy with how it is based on the welds. It just looks kind of janky. This plate's still not completely flat, so that means there's always going to be a little bit more stress on the transmission, which I do not want. So, and I kind of want to get away from it being slotted. So I've made the decision that I'm going to do some plasma cutting and cut all this junk out and start fresh. There's nothing quite like cutting apart your own work you did less than 6 months ago. What a great feeling. All right, I don't know if you could tell in the time lapse earlier when I was cutting that out, the frame shifted a little bit and that rail went in. So we're shaking hands with danger right now. We got a ratchet strap tied to a clamp, and it is ratchet strapped to my table over here, which has the brakes locked on. Not that wheel, but the others, and it kind of sinks into the ground because it's so goddamn heavy. Yeah, never put asphalt as your floor in the garage. It'll get absolutely destroyed. This is not my house. So we got it pulled most of the way back out. And yeah, I'm just kind of scared because that clamp seems like it wants to pop out of there and knock my teeth out. I always do when I plasma cut a part out is I like to go back through with a drill in the right size. And just kind of true up each hole. Usually makes bolts a little bit better fit. Gives you a little bit of wiggle room too. So as usual, I got a little ahead of myself and kind of forgot to stop and record. But we have our transmission mount in, which between some other factors going on in my life and other responsibilities, it took me like 3 nights to get this welded in place, which it's not even welded in place, it's just tacked, which is stupid. But we got it in place. I had to cut it in and out of there probably 2 or 3 times just to get our chain alignment as dialed in as possible. We got our gusset piece, which also is the mount for the chain tensioner that we're going to work on in the future. And then on the side here, we cut out a big stiffener. Goes all the way out. It had to bump out a little bit because we had to shift this plate outside of the frame to get the trans in the spot it needs to be. But we got a nice big gusset made there. So weld that all up. Now, I'm hoping our saving grace for this transmission is going to be a top mount as well. We're going to really sandwich this thing in here. So I'm getting ready to cut it out now, but it's going to be basically a big horseshoe. Grabs all 4 of these bolts, then it's going to go back here, and we're going to have it another section welded onto this guy, tied into the plate so it can bolt together so we can get this trans in and out of here with no problem. Let's get that cut. Well, we got our funky pile pieces all cut out, and they are set in place, not welded. But you can see what I'm going for here. So we have this flange here that bolts to the top. That'll bolt to the trans, then it'll through bolt to this little bracket, which will be welded to our shock tower, which is then going to be super mega braced down to the trans mount. So I think this will help clamp the trammy in there and hopefully prevent that happening again. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it a night. It's like 9 o'clock on a Friday. We'll hit this at the morning. All right, well, it's the next morning, and we have our box all tacked up. I did pull the transmission in and out and it's pretty easy to do that. The only other thing we did was worked on the chain tensioner down here, which I'll pull out in a minute and show you, but we've got that beefed up as well. So I think we're about done with the fabrication process and need to move into the fully welding it, which there's going to be a lot of weld all throughout this thing, which is good. I haven't welded in a while, so it's a good skill to keep up with. I think this should work pretty good. It's going to sandwich the box down. The issue with the other one when it broke is the torque was kind of making it lift backwards, I think, because you have the belt pulling that way, you have the chain pulling that way. I think this should hopefully keep this much more stout. We also don't have the stress of this being on sliders. This is just staying in holes, which will help it stay in place too. Well, I lost the welding footage, so just imagine the opposite of this process. All right, so the next project, since we're waiting on the paint to dry, got to give paint at least 30 seconds to dry off before we install the transmission. We're gonna move on to the brakes. Now, if you remember, I had a hand lever here with a ATV style caliper. Didn't really work that well. It looked crappy. It was just kind of a pain. So I want to make my clutch pedal also the brake pedal. And something happened with the other caliper that I had. It wanted to seize up. So not sure what's going on there. That might be an issue. But we have another caliper and master cylinder combo. This is just a universal off Amazon. We should be able to hook that guy right into our brake, or our clutch linkage, I hope. And then we have some adjustment there. And hopefully we can make this all work. I originally didn't want to do this just because I figured trying to adjust the brakes and the clutch as one unit was going to be a real pain in the neck. It might still be a pain, I don't know. But this will be good because I really should be coming to a stop anyway to shift. These transmissions do not like to shift on the fly. They are not made to do that. So this is a good way to force myself to come to a stop every time I want to change gears. So to hook our brakes up, we have our pedal here, which has that little hole there. That's where this tie rod end goes, and that runs the clutch. So we are going to make a custom bolt that goes through that pin, through our tie rod, and then it's going to grab the end of our master cylinder. And yeah, so nut and bolt to hold the clutch together, and then we'll do a little bit of machining to get it down to the end of the bolt to a smaller diameter, run it through here, and then pin it, and then we'll just have to mount this to the frame somewhere. So to make our new custom brake pin, master cylinder pin, whatever, we fired up the old clawsing lathe, which is one of my favorite tools in the shop to use. I hope to upgrade this machine in the future, but for now it's fun as is. As always, big thanks to my buddy Beaven who gave me these sweet set of calipers. They'll come in handy for the precision work we're doing today, as I almost drop them on the ground. Looks close enough to me. So we got our bolt brake caliper pin here. A little trick I learned a long time ago. Whenever you shorten a bolt, or in this case, remove some threads, always leave a nut on there so you can fix the threads on the way off. Sort of like a tap, but it just kind of cuts the threads back into the end. Like so. Voila, something like that ought to work perfect. So now we just got to cut out a mount here for these two bolts. We'll have to build some sort of guard for this. It's not the lowest hanging thing on the frame, but this is very liable to get ripped right off of there, which I do not like. But our exhaust is lower, our pulley's not that much higher. We'll just build a nice little guard and we should be good. Well, the election day is next week, and I'm getting a bunch of people stopping by trying to get me to vote for people, and some guy who's running for the senator of Iowa just stopped by the house. But I got more important things than to talk to him. Well, we got mini Jeeps to build. All right, I think this is not going to work how I hoped. Like I said, I was worried about combining the clutch and brake, and this just does not have nearly the throw I need for the clutch. With this belt system there, not going to work. So we're going to have to build a separate pedal. Well, actually, I think I found a solution. Took me a little bit of thinking, but basically what we need is more throw with less engagement on this, if that makes any sense. So I came up with this guy. So this is the original end that goes on there. Then we've got a tube that I turned on my lathe to have a bore down the center. The idea is, it goes there. So, let me see if I can hold the camera and do this. When you press on the clutch, it doesn't engage till it hits that nut back there. So that gives us a lot more throw. And pretty adjustable, which I think will work. The only thing I don't like is this being a slip together part. There's always the chance that it could, unslip and then I lose my brakes. So I might think of some way to prevent that from happening, but we put a stop in the brake pedal here so it can't go past that. So in theory, it shouldn't be able to come apart. Yeah, so we'll have to pack this full of grease when we actually use it, just so it gets a nice sliding action. It'd probably be even better if we remove these threads. And I might break the tacks off, move it up about a 1/2 inch just to make sure that it's always on there. But I think I should work with the same clutch and brake pedal. All right, we got it all greased up, bolted up. Don't look at those welds. Been a long time since I've done overhead. I'm not going to build a guard today. I want to make sure this works before I go ahead and build some big guard, but we will definitely need to guard that master cylinder and linkage. So now, I got the chain on last night. I don't think I showed you guys that. I think now we're ready to put the body on, which has been sitting out in the rain all day, so that's going to be a real treat. And then in theory, we should be ready to go for a little test drive, I think. Well, when I designed this thing, I made the body just easy enough to get on and off by myself, but just hard enough it's an absolute pain. All right, we have the very wet body back in place. Now, I built this thing so the body would be easy to get on and off for times like this. And it's doable. It takes about 20 minutes. The biggest pain is this dash. I have to remove the dashboard every time because of all the wiring. It's either remove the dash. I actually have to remove the dash no matter what. But that's something I want to work on in the future, making that a lot easier to do. Otherwise, went on in place. But I just realized I forgot to put a body mount back down here. So, this side's kind of free floating right now, which isn't a big deal, but my girlfriend's using the dryer right now, so my welder is unplugged. So anyway, that'll have to wait for another day, I guess. I'm going to get the oil checked, get this thing fired up. It leaks like a sieve from the main output seal on the bottom. I need to pull the engine one of these days and do that. And I don't know, maybe I'll take it for a spin, but it's been pouring rain all day. Probably shouldn't. All right, it's been probably at least a month or two since I've run this thing. We topped it up with oil. I did prime it a little bit, so I'll probably fire it up. Well, we have no brakes at all, and the chain looks like it's already doing something funky. Yeah, somehow our tensioner got off on the side. So I don't know if our brake issue is an adjustment issue or a bleeding issue, but we're going to tighten up the adjustment some so that brake engages earlier and see if that does the trick. All right, still don't have any brake, I don't think. and our belt's not tight enough or something. All right, so our test ride showed us that our transmission mount is working good. I took it for a spin around the backyard. I still noticed a little bit of chain popping while I'm going downhill. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to move this spring up one notch, put a little bit more tension on it, see if that goes away. If not, it's pretty tolerable right now. Not ideal. But if you have any ideas on how to fix that, I've had a heck of a time with the chain tensioner setup. It seems a lot better now that we have much beefier chain tensioner that I'm hoping will stay straight. But any tips or anything I did wrong with this chain setup, please let me know, because it's been fighting me the whole time. More importantly, what doesn't work is the brakes. And I think the big issue is that master cylinder is mounted sideways. Now, I was hoping that would work, but just to fill it, you have to undo the bolts, flip it up, fill it, bleed it. Just a real pain in the neck. So I ordered one on Amazon that is the same style, hopefully the same bolt pattern too, but has a remote reservoir we can put wherever we want and fill whenever we want. So we're going to try that. We have 2 different styles coming on Amazon. So while I'm waiting on that, I fixed some wiring on the dashboard here. And more importantly, I added a kill switch up here, because before my kill switch was this, which worked, but I just feel better with this, especially if I start putting other people in this thing. I want them to be able to shut it off real quickly. 'Cause let's face it, this thing's janky as heck. Anyway, I took a week off working on this thing for several reasons. I was kind of annoyed by the brakes. We have some parts to fix that. I also spent a week reviving my old ATEX 6x6. It's the big yellow blob right there. That should be a pretty good video as well. And last but not least, I went and bought another project truck to replace the Dodge. So keep an eye out for those 3 videos. If they're not out before this anyway, they probably will be, if I can ever get these brakes done. So new plan for the brakes. Let's get our parts packages opened up here. All right, so if you're keeping track, this is master cylinder number 3 that we've tried so far. Actually number 4. I ordered one more and tried it. Never actually tried it, but yeah, anyway, this is master cylinder number 3. This is the one I'm most confident on, but sadly it's the largest and going to be the hardest to package in that location. I went with one with an attached reservoir for less chance of it leaking in that hose. This one's meant to mount like this and work like this. It's got the rod that we need. It's just really bulky. You also notice it's 2 ports, and that is because I am hoping to tie into our original front caliper brakes from the Polaris. These hoses right here. So to do that, I got a Y-block assembly, 3-way, whatever you want to call it. So that'll hook those 2 hoses together, and then we'll hook it to some copper nickel line, which I think I have a bunch left over back here. Hopefully I do. We'll bend up some custom lines and run it down to where the master cylinder is going to mount. The only thing that's going to be tough to figure out there is how to go from a banjo style fitting to a steel hose. I had bought this random hose. I have no idea what this is for, but it's the wrong diameter. So I'm either going to have to make a banjo bolt to brake fitting adapter. I have no idea what thread this is, if I can thread that or use a tap to make something. I don't know. Or do a bunch of research online. Now that I have this in my lap, I can take some measurements and go from there. This is some sort of Polaris UTV master cylinder. I think it should work okay. All right, I think to do this, it's going to go in the same exact spot, and that means that reservoir is going to go through the floor, so I'll have to cut a hole in the floor. So I think the easiest way to go about this is to pull the body back off again, which, like I said, not a big deal, but just kind of a pain in the butt. I need to make that easier. We'll get it all mounted up there, get it working, get our front hose ran, hopefully, and then we'll cut the hole in the floor last and go from there. So, next clip, you'll see this is off. All right. So for our 3rd rendition of the mount, looks like it's going to go somewhere right about there. We're going to have to make a longer pin. I'll have to build a support off that pivot for the pin. I don't want to break that. Yeah. All right, we got our caliper all dialed in here. So that means one thing and one thing only, brake line time. So the rear's easy enough. We pretty much already have that done. The front here took a little bit of thinking. So I needed to go from a banjo bolt to hard line to catch our front lines up here. Bam. So these two are original Polaris lines up from the calipers, which I hope are still good. I got this 3-way fitting on Amazon, and to convert it between hard line to rubber line, I just got like a front Honda Civic brake hose, I think it is. I don't know exactly what it was. Took the O'Reilly's guy a little while to figure it out, but it should work nicely. And got kind of a nice transition going up here, ducks through there, and then we'll have it hook onto our 3-way somewhere right there. So looking pretty good. Just got to throw a flare on here and we'll call it good. I hope my fitting's on there. Ugh. Oh, that sucks. All right, well, we've all done that before, and if you say you haven't, you're lying. We got these 3 all tight. We got our line run pretty nicely. I got to put something there to make sure it doesn't rub through, but I'm pretty happy with the routing down to our rubber hose here. I think I'll probably make, I don't know if I'll worry about a bracket for that or not. And then running back to our master cylinder here. So we got our front and rear brakes hooked up for the first time in this whole project's lifespan. I got to try and find a bleeder on here. I bet I destroy the calipers doing that. Nice. I really should bench bleed this master cylinder too, but I don't have any short hoses unless I undo that connection. Run it back in there. I guess I have this spare hose. I could cut it down. Maybe we'll do that. Try and bleed it up right the first time. All right. It took a lot of bleeding. I'm still not exactly pumped on how these brakes work. What? They are working, just not as great as they should. So I think we need to pump a little more. Bleed them a little more is what I mean. The fronts had a ton of air in them, obviously, because those lines have been open for 6 months now. All right, well, I'm glad to say I finally have a master cylinder on here, which is actually working. All right, your guys' camera's dirty. Hold on. Whoa. Whoa. That's a little better. All right, we did some guesstimate measuring here. And believe it or not, I mean, I put way too big of a hole, but that kind of attributed to our success. But we get the master cylinder located. The body's in its spot. I will have to pull the body off one more time so I can tie up some wires that I had to remove. Just kind of get that all dialed in. I think I'm going to go ahead and change my tensioner again. Now, I somehow screwed up designing this. I don't know what part of the engineering of my transmission mount suspension, but something's wrong where this chain just never wants to be tight. So our transmission is behind the pivot point, and I don't know if that's part of the problem. I don't know what the deal is, but we have our chain tensioner on the bottom there, and when we push down, or basically when I would sit in it, the bottom of the chain stays tight, which I thought would make it happy, because when you're rolling forward, the bottom of the chain is what's doing the driving. But then our top, I can't really demonstrate it right now with one hand holding the camera, our top chain stays loose, or can be loose. So I'm thinking about changing that so it's actually a dual tensioner at once. So we'll do a little arm off that with another sprocket. I don't know. Seems overcomplicated, but I noticed the other day when I was driving this thing, it was still popping the chain. It mostly does it going downhill, like non-under power. So really annoying. It's not really a big problem. It's just super annoying. It's going to wear out my sprocket, which was custom machined. So we're going to do that as well, I think, when we have the body pop back off. So, all right, I just got done tacking together the craziest looking chain tensioner I've ever seen in my life. It's just loosely sitting on there, but you can kind of see what's going on here. When the bottom goes down, the top goes down too. So hopefully that'll help keep it tighter. Nah, it's just loosely, it's all cattywampus because it's loose. All right, we'll weld that together because that has some promise. Try and get the two chains aligned. I think I would like to put a little gusset under there because there's a lot of stress on that plate the chain tensioner is mounted to. But welding's a real pain in the neck. I am a little frustrated tonight. Usually this garage stays pretty dry, which is really nice, but just today, just look at the water on everything. So that ruined a whole thing of welding wire over here. It's just running like crap through my liner. I mean, look, that is what welders crave. If you don't want porosity and you want good welds, just let your wire sit out in the rain. What the pros do. That's enough complaining. We are gonna weld, throw the body on, and take her for a spin, maybe. All right, apparently we need to tighten up the belt a little bit. All right, so I took a little break from working on this thing because it was being a little pain in the neck. The double tensioner system that I was showing you guys does not work well. So we cut that off, went back to a single tensioner, and I'll show you that. And it seems to be much happier. Seems like our brakes also seem to work. Yeah, we're getting somewhere.
Steering is really not that good, Matt.
Yeah. Shut the fuel pump off. I think it's pumping fuel out. Yeah, motor's not that happy right now. This is the first time really running it in a few months, and it always, whenever it sits, it must have bad valve seals or something because it fills itself up with oil and smokes like crazy for the first couple minutes of riding it. But we got Steven on it. Steven's here visiting for the week. He helped me figure out the tensioner. And this is his first time getting to ride this thing. No wheelies! I think our belt's covered in oil. Oh yeah, and it's gonna die. All right. Let's get it up to the garage. Give it some revs. Check out the dog turd right there. Ew. Anyway, you can see all the oil. I don't know what would cause all that. It's dumping out of the carb, I guess. Does it every time you start it the first time. And I don't care enough about that motor to figure it out. But it seems like the brakes seem to work pretty good.
Well, until I got to backing up.
Oh, they don't work in reverse?
Huh?
They don't work in reverse?
Well, I mean, the brakes should work all the time. Not
Anyway.
to do with your gearing.
The brakes mostly work. And our transmission didn't split in half. So I'm going to call it ready to go for a ride. We get a couple other machines. The ATEC's going for a ride. The Coot, maybe the Odyssey. So
It's going to be miserable.
Yeah, it's like 10 degrees out here today. So, yeah. All right, we got the mini Jeep out today. It's only been like 6 months since the last time I had it out for the first time ever. So this is my second time actually taking this thing for a ride. We got a whole bunch of things out today. We got Steven over there on the big wheel. We were riding the ATECs and the Coot earlier this morning. Probably a really good way to break an axle shaft, huh? I'm gonna take a break from them and hop on this little guy and see if our upgrades and repairs made any differences. All right, let's go for a spin. Jeff does this from time to time. Nice. Holy cow! I almost just died. Whoa! I hit that rut that took the steering right out of my hand. Alright, hang on a little bit like that. Woo-hoo! Alright, so a big part of the problem is this seat. I need a better seat. This thing's a mess. I need you to hold the clutch so I can adjust this belt right. Alright, we got the belt tensioned. It's like super tight, so. Just yoink the belt off and the pulley. Nice. That's what it wants. All right, well, I guess that means we made the belt a little too tight. All right, we gotta go get some Allen keys. Alright, we acquired Allen keys. I've ridden this bike in a long time, like 6 months. Alright, we tightened up the pulley. I don't know, we'll see. I put the pulley up higher on the shaft than I had it before. I still don't have high hopes. This thing still needs some work. But let's go for a spin anyway. This is a little bit bigger ice chunk. I don't know if it's gonna make it across this or not. I thought for sure that was gonna cave in. Alright, let's do some obstacles hopefully. Oh yeah. Ah! Ah! Around. Oh yeah! Alright, well please excuse my extremely manly screaming there. Jeez. It just kind of kept going. I wasn't really ready for that. Well, cool, it swung the belt off, it looks like. Dang it, I thought we finally had that. Threw a different pulley off this time. Threw the engine pulley, that's new. I don't know why I would have thrown that. Oh, it's smoking too. Hey, at least the keyway's right there. All right, not sure why that happened. It's still smoking, so I am not touching it. But thankfully our keyway is sitting right there in the dirt next to it. You can see where it spun around for a little while, so we'll let that cool off and then we'll stick it on there. How did you flip that up? All right, well, Steve was trying to come help me because I laid the mini Jeep over. Oh. Oh, man. Oh, wow, that really sucks. All the way around. All right, I need to shut the fuel pump off on this thing. All right. Well, I wanted to ask you guys for your opinion on my belt system anyway. This is a really convenient time to show you how I have it set up. So it still slips a lot. So this is the clutch. It goes like that, and that releases. I don't know what I need to do to get a better throw. I'm not too worried about it today. Right now, the problem is I need to flip this thing back over. Good thing I have Steven here.
Why am I always getting a wet leg? It's always the right one, too.
Yeah, that's some nasty looking mud, too.
Yeah.
I suffered a little bit, but... All right. Jeez. This is going to hell in a handbasket real quick. All right. I guess we'll go ahead and get this thing flopped over somehow. All right, I got you guys set up on a tree. We're going to try and just right back on that side.
Hey, I was just saying that Patrick flipped his first Jeep finally.
Finally. Knock on wood, hopefully the only one ever. All right. There's not really anything we can do to limit damage.
Now, I think once we get it past like this, I should maybe do a little bit of
Battery adjustment.
yeah.
Alright, let's go. That's not bad.
I don't think you messed it up.
I don't think any damage.
Let's see. I'll put it back on. Alright, let's try not to bust through that so it's like.
Alright, everything going. Is there really no dent? There's not a single freaking dent on it.
We did more damage loading on the trailer last night.
What the hell? I'm serious, there's not a single dent.
I think your shock mount tower saved you. It smells really bad like gas though.
I don't think that's even dented, that's just muddy.
No, I'm saying I think that.
Yeah, I think the shock tower probably sat right on that.
Well, I guess
Yeah, I don't see a single piece of like damage. Wow, that makes me really happy.
if you had a windshield there, that would have been definitely gone.
There's a little scratch there that wasn't there before. I don't see any dents on the hood.
My pants definitely suffered.
Yeah, Steven's pants suffered. He did worse off than I did, and I rolled a Jeep over on myself. All right, yeah, this is just mucky. There's not even a dent there. Sweet. I thought for sure this thing was gonna be clapped. All right, I wonder if it still runs right.
I bet you the Chinese mini Jeep can't do that.
Yeah, Chinese mini Jeep would have cracked.
Like today, those plastics.
Those plastics would have been toast. All right, well, build your Jeep out of 14 gauge plate, apparently. Wow, I'm really impressed.
Here's a washer.
Leave no trace, brother.
Nice. We're gonna see if it'll fire up. Ooh, you might need to get it in a rocket barb. Careful, that ice can be thin. Oh. Nice. Tap that kill switch a couple times, maybe. All right, well, when it flipped, I guess the fuel shut off turned off, so hopefully we'll be able to fire it up and go.
Yeah, there you go.
I think you're stuck on the back.
All right, took a good bit of lifting while it kind of drove itself out of there, but it's out. Whew. I'm still in awe of 0 damage. Steven's right, we did more damage last night loading it on the trailer, scraping the paint on the coot, than flipping it over. Huh. Wow. Yeah, that stuff's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Go jump in the middle. high gear and get back to the truck, huh? All right, we made it back to the truck. You know, at first, at the beginning of the day, I was kind of unimpressed with this thing. I was still really unhappy with it, how it's performing. I still got to figure out something with the belt system. Right now, it works okay, but it's like, it's either way too tight or way too loose. There's no good in between, so I need more throw, I think. So we'll figure that out. But I'm just amazed this thing didn't sustain any damage at all. I will never get over that. I'm glad I didn't sustain any damage either. Sorry, Steven.
Sustained annoying damage.
Yes, Steven sustained annoying damage. But, I mean, for my second time getting to really ride this thing, I'm pretty happy with it. So, we're going to go back to maybe riding some more relaxing things. Not that, it doesn't run right. Not that, the exhaust fell off. So the Coot's pretty much all that's left.
Broke the seat.
Yeah, Steven broke the seat on that one, so. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys haven't seen the full build series on this thing, please do check it out. They have like remarkably low views for me building a complete four-wheel drive mini Jeep, but that's the way she goes, I guess. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you in the next one.